All right, diving right in. This one's all about the Amarok for you. And we're going deep. Not just the stories, but what this creature from Inuit myth really means. You guys sent in, what, Wikipedia, mythology sites, even like biology breakdowns.
Yeah, it's a great mix, actually. Let's us see, well, not just the Amarok itself, but how people blend fact and fiction when they imagine these powerful beings.
So, first things first. What is the Amarok? I mean, really?
Okay, picture a wolf, but like huge E, way bigger than normal, and it's not a pack hunter. Roams alone. That makes it different right away. Super imposing, right? Some people even say it's like those dire wolves, extinct giants. Maybe that's where the idea comes from, that real world awe.
Yeah, that mix of like wolf we know with the total unknown, that's what gets you.
Yeah.
But the Amarok isn't always like the big bad wolf, is it?
No, not always. There's this story about a boy. He's weak. Everyone picks on him. So he plays to get stronger. And guess who answers? The Amarok, right? This massive thing. It trains him, even wrestles him. The story says little bones pop out of him during the wrestling, representing like his limits. And after, boom, the kid's strong enough to beat bears.
So not just a mindless beast. It's got a purpose, maybe even like a sense of fairness,
Right.
rewards people who try hard.
Right, really flips the script. But then you've got this other story, a grieving man. He goes and kills the Amarok's pups. Out of despair.
Ooh, that can't go well.
Nope, doesn't. The Amarok, it senses the loss, takes the man's soul. Harsh, but it shows what the Inuit believe. You got to respect nature's balance. Actions have consequences, especially when you're letting grief, cloud your judgment.
So it's like two sides. The Amarok helps, it punishes, but not randomly. It's reacting to what people do. But what's its role in the whole, like, ecosystem?
This is where the caribou come in. The Inuit say, the sky god Kala, he told the Amarok to keep the caribou herds healthy, so it takes out the weak ones, just like wolves do in real life. Keeps everything balanced. It's not Jayzaki about hunting, it's about the long term.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's not just taking life, it's making sure life can go on sustainably.
And this ties into how, to some people, the Amarok isn't just a myth, it's like a cryptid. Maybe real, but nobody's proven it. Some even say it's those Arctic wolves people see in Greenland, or some kind of wild dog.
So the line between myth and reality, kind of blurry, huh? Makes you wonder, if you ran into this thing, would it help you or, be a huge threat?
That's where how it's described gets interesting. You can't easily call it good or evil, more like neutral. Like nature itself, it reacts to how you treat it, like a mirror.
Not judging good and evil, but judging balance, huh? That's pretty different from, like, Western creatures. They're usually good guys or bad guys, clear cut.
Exactly. Different worldview. Humans aren't above nature, they're part of it. The Amarok, make sure you remember that. We gotta follow nature's rules, not the other way around.
And that respect for nature, I bet that shows up in how they picture the Amarok, right? How it looks.
Oh, for sure. They talk about thick fur, even camouflage that changes color so it blends into the Arctic. Glowing eyes are popular too, adds that supernatural vibe.
Wow, so you can really picture it, both beautiful and scary.
Hmm.
But that's also pretty practical for where it supposedly lives, isn't it?
Definitely. Lots of those features are like adaptations you see in real Arctic wolves. Shows how myths come from the real world too.
Yeah.
Makes the fantastical a bit more, well, believable, like blurring what's made up and what's actually out there.
So the Amarok's not just the imagination. It's shaped by the real power and beauty of the Arctic. Makes me wonder, though, how did the Inuit feel about facing such a thing? Like, was that even a thought?
That's the question that gets to the heart of how they understood the Amarok's power and where humans fit into that whole power structure. It wasn't about conquest. It was about navigating this complex relationship they had with the natural world.
A relationship where respect, maybe even understanding, were worth more than just brute force. That takes us to a really interesting question. How did the Inuit think about confronting something like the Amarok? Was it even possible?
Now that's where we get into some deep cultural insights. See, the very idea of fighting it, that tells us a lot about how people see themselves compared to, well, the supernatural. To the Inuit, facing the Amarok, it wasn't some heroic thing, like beating a monster for glory. It was about survival, plain and simple. And even then, they knew it was dangerous, there would be consequences.
So less like conquering it and more like if you had to, right?
Yeah.
That's way different from like those dragon slaying nights we hear about.
Exactly. It's like they understood humans weren't at the top. They're part of this big web, everything connected. Challenging the Amarok, that wasn't something you did lightly. It was like spiritual, not just dangerous.
Makes me think of those stories where the Amarok helps people or guides them. Would they even think about fighting it then?
Good point. In those stories, it's not an enemy, right? It's like a a source of wisdom. You'd be proving yourself to it, or maybe fighting your own weaknesses, not a physical fight.
So even the idea of fighting, it shows how a culture sees its place in the world.
Exactly. It's not just about being strong. It's about that balance between humans and nature. And the Amarok, it's like it is us that balance. It's there to remind us what happens when we mess it up.
Whoa. It's like the Amarok's not just a creature, it's this thing between the real world and the spirit world.
And that in-between place, that's where a lot of Inuit myth happens. It's all about those unseen forces, respecting the lines between worlds, and knowing that what we do, it affects more than we can see.
Okay, so fighting the Amarok, not something you do for fun, but let's say hypothetically someone had to face it. What did the Inuit think would actually work?
Well, the stuff you sent, it actually talks about this. It's a mix of, like, being practical and respecting how powerful it is.
So not just charging in, swinging a sword.
Nope, not at all. A lot of it is knowing how the Amarok acts, using the environment, like knowing its territory, when it hunts, when it's most active. It's about observing, learning its patterns before you even think about fighting.
So knowledge is power, even against a myth.
Oh, yeah. And stealth, camouflage, that's huge. They say the Amarok's senses are super sharp, so not getting detected, that's key.
Makes sense. It's like you got to respect its strengths, find ways around them, not just go head to head.
Exactly. And if you have to fight, they say go for weak points. Eyes, legs, the jaws, places where one good hit could cripple it. It's more about being precise than just being strong.
So strategy, being smart, knowing its body. Like a hunter, but with that extra, spiritual awareness.
Right. And maybe the most important thing, teamwork. Taking on the Amarok alone, that's suicide. It's working together, sharing what you know, having a plan. That's how you might survive.
Strength in numbers, even against the supernatural. I guess that shows how important community was to the Inuit, huh? Sharing the burden.
Oh, for sure. It's like a reminder, we're not meant to face tough stuff alone,
Mhm.
especially the things that push us to the limit, make us face the unknown. We need each other, all our smarts and courage to deal with the world, the stuff we see, Andy, the stuff we don't.
It's pretty powerful, especially these days when it feels like everyone's all about themselves, forgetting about community.
Yeah, I hear that. And the Amarok, it's a good reminder with all its mystery and what it stands for. Those connections matter.
So we've got the Amarok as this symbol of strength, a guide, protector, maybe even an enemy. But what about what it eats? Does that tell us more?
That's a great question. Even what people imagined it eating, it says something about its role, how powerful it is.
Okay, I'm hooked. What does a giant mythical wolf eat?
Think biggest, toughest things in the Arctic, right? Caribou, muskox, maybe even seals, walrus, if it went
Yeah.
near the coast. This thing's not snacking on rabbits, it's taking down the strongest stuff up there.
Yeah, it makes sense. Got to fuel that size, that power.
Mm.
But it also puts it right at the top, doesn't it? King of the hill.
Exactly. It's like the symbol of its dominance, how connected it is to raw nature. But there's more to it. Some stories say it doesn't just eat the body, it maybe eats the spirit too, the essence.
Hold on, that's a whole other level. What does that even mean?
It's probably a metaphor, like how everything's connected, every being feeds another, keeps the cycle going, life and death, all that. The Amarok, by eating both, it's like it embodies that whole cycle.
So it's not just food, it's keeping a balance in the spirit world too.
Exactly. It's that Inuit idea. Everything's connected, alive or dead. And the Amarok, it's this powerful, middleman. It is that connection, reminding us of this web we're all part of.
That's a deep way to look at predator and prey, huh? Not just survival, but the whole interconnectedness thing, energy flowing, all that.
Right. And it shows how the Amarok's more than just flesh and blood. It's a spirit, tied to the land, to the spirits, to life itself, really.
Okay, so we've got this powerful, mysterious thing tied to nature, maybe eats souls. But let's get real for a sec. If you met this thing, how would you even know if it was in a good mood? Is it going to help or try to gobble you up?
That's the question, right? And luckily, there are some clues in the stories. Remember, it's not usually good or are evil. It's neutral. It's all about keeping things balanced, upholding nature's laws.
So not judging what's right or wrong, but reacting to how people act.
Right. There are stories where it protects people, even teaches them, guides them, but only if they respect nature, are humble. But mess with nature, act reckless, disrespect it, watch out.
So be good to nature, you're good with the Amarok. It's not about pleasing it, it's about understanding its role, living the right way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's realizing we're part of something bigger, this whole interconnected thing, and it demands respect.
This brings us to, how the Inuit themselves saw the Amarok. Was it scary, something to respect, admire, or All of the above.
You got it. It's all mixed up, just like how complex the creature is.
Okay, break that down for me.
Hmm.
Why is the Amarok so important to them?
Well, first off, it's strong, tough. You need that in the Arctic to survive. Hunters especially, they probably saw it as like what they wanted to be. Tough, enduring.
Like something to aspire to? But there's the spirit side too, right?
Absolutely. It's often a spirit guide, teacher, even like their ancestors watching over them. Some stories say it challenges people, makes them face their weaknesses so they get stronger.
So it's not just muscles, it's inner strength,
Yeah.
resilience, spiritual stuff.
Exactly. And that's huge in Inuit culture. Real strength comes from both, that connection to the land, their traditions.
It's wild how the Amarok's got all these pieces of their culture in it. How they see nature, being tough, respecting the unknown.
It really does. And that's how powerful stories are. Myths like the Amarok, they pass down knowledge, values, who they are through generations.
So, bottom line, what's the big takeaway for our listener about how important the Amarok was to them?
I think it's this. The Amarok, it's like this reminder. We're not separate from nature. We're part of it. What we do matters, and to live right, we got to have respect, be humble, and realize how powerful and mysterious nature is.
That's a deep lesson, especially now when, we're messing up the planet.
Exactly. And that's why these myths stick around. They're about the human experience, how we relate to nature, the forces that shape us, timeless stuff.
This has been awesome. Really digging into the Amarok, what it means to the Inuit. But I think it's time to go beyond the Arctic.
Oh, you mean how it pops up in our world today?
Right. How did this thing from these old Inuit stories end up in modern culture?
Well, there's the Volkswagen Amarok, right?
Mhm.
A truck named after our wolf friend.
Yeah. I always thought that was a good fit. Tough, powerful, like the Amarok.
Exactly. And it's not just cars. Mike Oldfield, he's got an album named Amarok.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Pretty epic, just like the creature. But why this creature, out of all the mythical ones, why do you think it sticks with people?
I think it's that part of us that's drawn to the wild, the untamed stuff, what's both awesome and scary. We live in cities, get disconnected from nature. The Amarok reminds us that wildness is still out there and inside us too.
That's deep. It's not just a spooky wolf story. It's about how we're connected to nature, how powerful it is.
Right. And with all the climate change stuff, destroying the environment, the Amarok's message about balance, respect for nature, that's super relevant.
Yeah, it's like a reminder. We're not in charge. We're just part of this big system. We got to respect it, understand it.
Well said. I think we need a little break, gather our thoughts, get ready for the last part of our Amarok journey.
Stick with us, folks. There's more to come. All right, welcome back. Still deep in Amarok territory. We've covered what the myths, what it means, even how it shows up today. But I feel like we're just scratching the surface, What else they got for us about this thing?
One thing that gets me is how the Amarok, it's not your typical monster like in other myths. It's not just about being scared or danger. It's about how awesome nature is and where we fit in.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about it, right? It makes you rethink how you see nature, the animals we share the planet with.
Exactly. It's asking us, what does it mean to really respect nature? How do we live alongside the wild? And what can we learn from these creatures that are both beautiful and powerful? They can create, destroy.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Especially now when we're seeing how we mess up the planet.
For sure. And the Amarok, with all its layers, it gives us a way to see how we relate to nature that's not just good guy, bad guy.
Right. It's not about controlling nature. It's about respecting it, finding a way to live together where everyone wins.
Exactly. And that living together thing, that's built into how the Inuit live. Up there, you got to understand nature, adapt to it, or you won't survive.
Which makes me think about how they saw the Amarok. Not just something to be afraid of, but like a source of wisdom, right? Showing them the way.
Yeah. It's like a teacher, guide, protector of the land. Even like their ancestors watching over them.
It's like the Amarok holds all the knowledge of people who lived in the Arctic forever,
Yeah.
Living in tune with it all.
And that knowledge, passed down through stories, it's like their guidebook, how to survive in a tough place.
It reminds us, sometimes the best advice comes from listening to nature, respecting how powerful it is, finding that balance.
Totally. And in a world where we're so disconnected from nature, that message is more important than ever.
So, wrapping up our Amarok deep dive, what's the big thing you want our listener to remember?
I think it's this. The Amarok, it's not just a made-up creature. It's a symbol of how powerful and enduring nature is. It shows how connected we are to everything around us. And it's a call to, treat the wild with respect. Be humble.
That's beautiful. Makes you realize there's still so much to learn from the world, the creatures in it. Real A&D imagined.
Yeah. Maybe if we listen to these old stories, we can find that connection to the wildness inside us again and learn to live in harmony with nature.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for taking us on this Amarok journey. This has been one for the books.
Anytime.